This was another good video from you, liberal viewer. I'd just like to respond. I'd say the most important factor in getting anything accomplished in the United States is money, and it has been for a long time. As for the importance of keeping and bearing arms, I'll get to that in a bit. I'm in absolute agreement in regard to the Second Amendment not being the most important, though it is an important barometer, as Dana Gold suggested in that clip from Real Time. Anytime you see the government seizing any kind of right, it can be an indication of things to come. I mean, immediately after the Ruby Ridge incident, the Clinton Justice Department had some additional snafus in regards to the Sixth Amendment and just illegal searches and seizures. Those tended to be picked up by the ACLU, so I'm sure you're familiar with them. And I think in that regard, Dana Gold was correct in the first part of his statement regarding the hardcore NRA members. And I think the fact that he used the NRA as a method to define the beliefs of these gun owners is extremely telling, because in the United States, political movements are primarily driven by a couple of things. The first are civil and cultural changes, and the other are political changes. The civil and cultural changes tend to be slower, things like increased support for gay rights or racial rights, but the faster political changes tend to be driven by things like marketing and sloganeering. The NRA has been very, very good at sloganeering. Even the appointment of Charlton Heston as the president of the organization for so many, many years is a sign of that. Charlton Heston had his brilliant line in Planet of the Apes, "Get your damn dirty hands off me, you filthy apes." That proved that Charlton Heston was a master of the one-liner. And because of that, who better to represent the NRA's slogan of "From my cold dead hands" than a very imposing dramatic actor? I think that the reason that such sloganeering has been so successful has to do with a lack of education in history and civics in the United States. Most of us don't learn the significance of amendments other than the second, aside from maybe a 9-week course in high school. And I think because of that lack of basic education on the other important judicial amendments, people are more susceptible to things like sloganeering. They hear "From my cold dead hands" and the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. When do you ever hear an organization talking about protections from the rights from searches and seizures? You don't hear that. You don't hear people going out and defending the right from cruel and unusual punishment. And I think a lot of that has to do with recent polls coming out, which suggest that torture in the United States is supported by almost 50% of the population, depending on what poll you're going to. And whether or not it has to do with the recipients of the torture seems irrelevant, because we don't question the freedom of speech for people from other countries who are here. We don't question their right to write in newspapers or assemble and hold protests. So I think really the solution to the problem, more than anything else, is to increase the civics and government education in the public schools at all levels of education. Because if they see the significance of all the different amendments, they will be able to see that a threat on one of them is a direct threat on the rest. Because in our Constitution, we don't say this amendment is more important than this one. That is up for the individual. That's up for the individual to decide in application to their own lives. But if the Second Amendment isn't important to you, but the Fifth Amendment is, if you see someone threatening the Second Amendment, that should immediately raise red flags, because if they'll take away their most important amendment, they will take away yours.